Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Trinity, also known as Ms. Herbsalot, and this is Toffee, my female caramel corn snake, and today we are going to go over hermit crab care, specifically purple pinchers, which are some of the most common land hermit crabs that you will find in captivity. The right care, they can make some amazing long-term companions. So let's get into it. Before we jump into care detail, let's kind of talk about where hermit crabs come from. So, oftentimes, when you go to the beach shores, you go to these shops, you see a good amount of hermit crabs in these wired cages. Um, they're in these painted shells. They've got like a little dish with like a small little sponge in it, and like maybe this really grainy looking food. Um, that that is not okay. That is something you do not want for your hermit crabs. So hermit crabs are wild caught. There's a few projects going on right now for captive bred hermit crabs, but it is really difficult to breed hermit crabs in captivity because they are so delicate. Unfortunately, a good amount of these hermit crabs that you're going to find in these beach shops and in these pet stores are going to be wild caught. What does that mean? Taking the hermit crab from the wild, bringing it in like massive droves, compiling them into one facility where they'll be shipped off to other places to be sold in stores. A lot of the times, hermit crabs are forcefully removed from natural shells, meaning that they will actually crack the hermit crab shell and then stuff them into the toxic painted ones. The paint on those shells, I don't care what anybody says, it's 100% toxic to hermit crabs because as hermit crabs get into water, it heats up, it can chip and peel, and it can release a bunch of chemicals that are dangerous to your hermit crabs. It can also lead to bacteria growing, and it's not good at all. There have even been instances where they will put glue in the hermit crab shell and stick the hermit crab in there to where they're stuck in the shell and they can't get out. Overall, these painted shells, the whole or animal trade, when it comes to hermit crabs, is a very dodgy area, and most people want to avoid that. So, if you can, try to adopt from somebody who is wanting to, not take care of the crabs anymore. Try to source them from maybe the captive bred thing. I think that she's still working on them. I know I saw an update a while back where they had like some hatch or some that were going into shells, which was pretty cool. It just all depends. I mean, but if you're here, you're most likely already got them from the beach shop, which totally understandable. It's totally fine. Let's get them into a setup that's actually going to benefit them rather than shorten their lives like they would have at the beach shops. So first off, let's talk about them. Hermit crabs aren't your typical sit and forget type of pet. They're actually, despite their name, very social animals who need a proper habitat. And believe it or not, they can live up to 30 years in captivity with the right care. So if you thought that they were just a short-term pet, that is not the case. And that's what a lot of these beach stores will sell to you. Oh, they don't need that much. Tiny container, minimal bottle cap of water, something like that. And yeah, no, that's not the case. So hermit crabs are not like other crabs. Rather than having a hard exoskeleton on their abdomen, hermit crabs have a soft area. And what they do instead is take shells from like sea snails, whatever they find, and they wear those. Um, So they kind of like have like a little mobile home on their back, which is really cool when you think about it. It's something that's really unique and you don't see it too much out in the wild. Really, you don't see it unless it's hermit crabs. They've also have unique social structures. Hermit crabs out in the wild, when there's shells around or a shell around, they will form a line or a circle and they'll exchange shells. Like they'll line up and they'll exchange shells. So they get to bigger to smaller. I'll post some pictures here in a second of it, but it's pretty cool how they do it. Let's dive into basic hermit crab care and needs. It might seem like a lot at first. It was definitely overwhelming for me when I first started out, but it does get easier over time. A lot of people going into these Facebook groups go and ask questions, and a lot of the time they get shut down pretty quick. A lot of people get snarky really fast, which a lot of times in animal communities you will see that, which is something that I think needs to be drastically worked on, because we're honestly running off people from the hobby rather than helping them out. And that's something that needs to be changed because I want to have a very friendly community going forward. I don't want to see somebody struggling and being too scared to ask a question because they're scared they're going to get yelled at or timed out or whatever. Setting up your enclosure, a good general rule of thumb for hermit crabs, it's about 10 gallons a piece. So it'd be 10 gallon per crab. But bigger is always better. You're going to want probably, at least I suggest, a glass enclosure, kind of like a fish tank, or if you want to go plastic, like a plastic tote, like one of those clear plastic totes. They hold in humidity a lot more. I notice a lot of people struggle with humidity when they first start out. So the tank is definitely an important part, as well as the lid. If you have a wire mesh lid, it is great if you could saran wrap it, or possibly even making a custom lid. So for substrate, you're looking at 2 options really. 3 if you count the mix. So one would be place sand, and the other would be coconut fiber. I personally, and a lot of people do this, is mix them together. So it would be 4 parts sand to 1 part eco earth, which mine isn't like that. I have probably about half eco earth, half sand. It's kind of like a controversy thing in the hermit crab community because some people say the acidity in the coconut fiber is too much. Other people say that the sand is too dry and it's a whole big thing. So, like, for safety purposes, I'd say go around 50-50. It doesn't have to be perfect, because you're going to be able to get that humidity up with the other tips I'm fixing to give you. But definitely mix the eco earth and the sand together. The sand or the eco earth will help you hold the humidity, and the sand kind of simulates that environment that they came from. So typically when you mix up the substrate, you're looking for a sandcastle consistency. So if you can like mold it, like when you put it into the enclosure, you're good. People usually get like the bricks of eco earth, and they can soak them in water, and then they mix them up with the sand, and you'll get that perfect consistency, and you'll be set on the humidity. You're definitely going to want a heat mat on the side of the tank. So they make the reptile heat mats that stick on. They're supposed to go under the tank for snakes. I have one, or well, I have quite a few since I have so many snakes. But instead of putting it on the underside, you're going to put it on the side of the tank because hermit crabs, when they go under the molt, they risk burning themselves because they go way down there when they molt. And you don't want them to accidentally burn themselves when they're molting because they're at a very delicate stage. So you'd stick it to the side of the tank. and they have the ones that have the little thermometer that you can put in between the glass and the tank. Set it to the temperature needed, and then you'd also have a thermometer and inside of the tank that reads both the humidity and the temperature. You're gonna want to aim for a temperature around 75 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit, and the humidity should be somewhere between 70 and 80%. I always keep mine at around 75% to 80% humidity because it's just generally better for the hermit crabs to have a higher humidity since they breathe through gills. They don't have lungs. It's just generally better for them and easier for them to breathe, and they'll be a lot happier. To further help with like humidity, you can do something with your water dishes, and this is where the fun kicks in. Hermit crabs need 2 water dishes, both a fresh and a saltwater dish. So you're going to need 2 dishes that they can fully submerge in, but you want to make sure that they can get out. So add like fake plant or ladders to it so they can easily climb in and out. But they need both the fresh and the salt water to help with their molt cycles. The salt water helps with molting. The fresh water is, of course, for drinking. And that's the environment they come from. They have access to both fresh and salt water, so it's good for them. One of the ways you can boost your humidity if you're suffering with trying to keep that high enough is you can actually get fish bubblers, like the ones that go into your fish tank, and you can use a split tubing thing with the air stones, and you put it down in there, and when it bubbles up, it actually helps with humidity. You could also use sphagnum moss and sprinkle it around, or make a couple humid hides. I'll probably make a video at some point on how to make some humid hides, because those are actually really fun to make, and you can get pretty creative with them, with like an old container, some twine. Actually really cool. Lighting wise, not necessary. Hermit crabs do well if you just have like a normal light on in the house or in the room, wherever they're at. And if they get enough light, that's fine. Now, can you add a light? Yeah, sure, it's great. I have an LED light that I put up on mine, and I turn it on, and it makes it a lot brighter and a lot more natural in there. Some people have even used the UVB bulbs, and it's actually proved to be like kind of beneficial to the hermit crabs. Provides them with a more natural cycle. And overall, if you want to go for that, I'd say do it. Just be wary of how close it is to your hermit crabs, because it can, accidentally overheat them, and you don't really want to overheat your hermit crabs. Okay, for food. Now, hermit crabs are omnivores. They eat anything, and when I say anything, I mean anything. Even like their coconut hides in the tank. They're gonna have little lunch marks. Mostly you want to stick to organic foods. So think fresh fruits and vegetables, unsalted nuts, protein like boiled eggs or chicken. There's also Etsy shops, and I'm fixing to actually start getting into this, that sell pre-made hermit crab food. They've got like a mixture of like dried fruits, berries, vegetables, mixture of proteins, a lot of different good stuff that will benefit your hermit crabs and even help with like color if you're somebody who wants to see their hermit crab really colorful. Other thing that you want to think about is calcium. Hermit crabs, since they molt, need a lot of calcium. They can get that through eggshells, cuttle bone. I used to have in the tank a oyster shell dish. It was literally a bunch of crushed oyster shells, and my hermit crabs used to love it. They would go over there anytime they needed some and eat off of that. It was especially like when they came out from molting. But honestly, you can feed them like a lot of different stuff, like rose petals. They love those. It's just a matter of like finding everything that they can have, which I have a document on that I will post in the description. I've got both a basic care document and a food document that's going to go over pretty much everything you need, and probably everything that isn't going to be covered in this video. Molting is a stage for hermit crabs that helps them grow. It's kind of like when a snake, like Toffee, sheds her skin. It's them getting bigger. Hermit crabs are a bit more delicate, though, than snakes. Hermit crabs will... There's usually signs for when a hermit crab's fixing to go down to molt. They'll act a bit more hungry. They're going to go to the food dish and they're going to fill up. You'll probably see them in the salt water as well as the fresh water a lot. And they'll act a bit more shy. And if you see digging in the tank and they go down, they're probably going down to molt. That means do not dig them up. If you disturb a hermit crab that is under molting, it can lead to stress and them passing away due to that stress, so it's better just to not touch them. If you do so happen to disturb them, or if another hermit crab disturbs them, you're going to want to take a 2-liter bottle. You're going to want to cut the top part, and you're going to want to put it around the hermit crab without touching the hermit crab to keep the other tank mates from getting to him, because hermit crabs will eat each other, especially when one's in that vulnerable state. It's kind of like, a free meal to them. It's brutal, but it does happen a lot. So just be mindful and be careful. Hermit crabs do take a while to molt. They can take anywhere up from a week to longest has been 2 months. Possibly longer. Unless you smell like a fishy smell in the tank, then your hermit crab is probably done molting and you don't want to mess with it, because it's just a bad day if you do. Once they come back up from molting, you're probably going to see them either super pale. You actually most likely will see them super pale, and that's totally normal. Happens. It'll take a couple days for their colors to return. Some hermit crabs stay under and let their colors return. Others just come straight back up and get back to it. I've had Sandy, who was my smallest hermit crab at the time. She would go under and come straight back up after she was done molting, because they do eat their exoskeleton. So she ate that and then came straight back up. And she was really pale and I was really worried, but she proved me wrong and ran around, changed shells, and was doing her thing. The next topic is going to be shells. So depending on what species of hermit crab that you have, since we're focusing on purple pinchers, your most common shell that you're going to want to get for them is ones with the round openings. So things like turbo shells, little conch shells, those things. But as long as they have a round opening, that's what you're going to want to lean for. Hermit crabs like Ecuadorians prefer like an oval-ish opening, or like a half, or like a capitalized D is what I like to describe it as. And it all depends on the hermit crab species, but they'll even wear the round ones too. Round is what you're probably is your best bet to get. Plus turbos are pretty common. You can literally buy them on Etsy, Amazon. They are easy to get. Sizing is something that can be an issue for people. Most of the time they're like, I don't know what I should get. So general rule of thumb is take your hermit crab and measure the opening of their shell, and you'll want to go for something that's maybe a 1/2 inch to 1 inch bigger than that, and that's like a size up. So it's always good to get like a variety of sizes of shells, just so your hermit crab has some options to choose from. Sometimes they might choose something that's a bit too big, but usually hermit crabs have sense to change into something that they can fit. You want to make sure that the shell isn't too light or too heavy. A lot of, let's say, moon snail shells are very, very light, and hermit crabs typically don't go for those. They want something that's a bit more stout, like a turbo or a conch shell, something that's actually going to protect them, as the moon snail shells are really thin, can break pretty easily. Steer clear of painted. Like I said earlier, painted is toxic. It can chip off, it can poison your hermit crabs. It's just overall not a great time. Uh, I know they're pretty, and I know that some have cute little comics on them or something like that, but overall, for the health of your animal, you're going to want to stay away from those. So let's move on to enrichment and social behaviors. So, hermit crabs, despite the name hermit, are actually really, really social and really active. So hermit crabs are nocturnal, so you're probably not going to see them out a lot during the day. But at night, hermit crabs love to come out. They love to explore and play, which is why it's also a good idea to have like a bunch of different hides, a bunch of different toys and stuff that they can just interact with, as well as buddies. Now, if you have one hermit crab, you may as well get it a buddy, because hermit crabs do get depressed being alone. I know people who have had hermit crabs by themselves, and it's not good for them. They need that social bond. They need it to feel like, everything's okay. Because you got to think, they're coming from out in the wild where they're in these big colonies, and to suddenly being alone by themselves, it's not a good feeling. So the more tank mates you have, the better. You just have to keep in mind the size of the enclosure, as well as the supplies you're providing to your hermit crabs. So if you have 2 to 3 hermit crabs, you're going to need a 20 to 30 gallon tank, and you're going to want to make sure to clutter that. And by clutter, I mean leaf, like fake plants, climbing material, stuff that the hermit crab can generally enjoy and play on. A favorite of mine is actually a hamster wheel. The disc ones, not the metal ones, but the plastic discs. My hermit crabs love to run on the hamster wheel. You can also do like little puzzle boxes people sell on Amazon, where it's like these little plastic canvas cubes, and you can put them with like treats, and they'll roll them around. At shell shops, like little areas where they can go shell shopping. Before we wrap it up, common mistakes probably everyone has went through, or a lot of people have went through. Just kind of like the summary of what we already went over. Too small of an enclosure. Hermit crabs need a lot of space to explore, molt, and thrive. Minimum should be 10 gallon a crab. Not enough humidity, so you need to make sure to monitor and maintain proper humidity levels. Without it, hermit crabs can't breathe properly. As they have modified gills, they don't breathe through lungs, so they breathe the humidity in the air rather than the actual air. Using wrong water. Always, and I do mean always, and this applies to most exotic animals, always use dechlorinated fresh water. You don't want to use tap water. The chlorine is not good for the animals. So use like bottled spring water, or get some of the water prime. It removes the chlorine out of the water, and it's safe for your hermit crabs. And to make that salt water, you can get the aquarium sea salt, not any other kind of salt. You want to avoid table salt, avoid anything else, just the aquarium sea salt. And you can mix that up and make the salt water, and then you also have the fresh water. You definitely want the extra shells that are not painted, because again, painted shells, very bad. But that's that. Hermit crabs may seem like simple pets, but they are a bit more complicated than what people think. But they are manageable, and you can provide your hermit crab with a good long life. So just as long as you know what you're doing. In the description, I'm going to leave a document which is going to go over everything pretty much in depth, as well as a list of safe hermit crab foods that I've put together. And I'll probably leave some sort of resources as well to some different areas that can also help you discover more about hermit crabs. thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell if you want to see more videos like this. I know it's a bit low quality with the camera work, and the headset, but we're gonna make it a bit better as time goes on. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. I'm always around to help, and I always want to help people in the hobby because a lot of people don't, or so it seems with being rude and snarky. So I'm always going to be the person you can come to talk to if you have any questions, and I'm not going to judge if you're a first-time owner or even if you've been in the hobby for 10 plus years. I really don't care. You're a human being. But I hope this helped you out, and I will see you in the next video.